They told him the system would keep him honest. They told him factory match grade was as close to perfection as a man could get. They told him 100 other things meant to make excuses. They were wrong. His name was Staff Sergeant Caleb Mercer, 29, Army instructor, a recruiter's worst stereotype, silent, small, precise. Born in a barn on the Kentucky Ridge where time moves by seasons and bullets are learned by feel instead of instruction manuals. He'd been loading rounds before most kids learned to drive. His grandfather, a gunsmith, a man who taught wood to hold tight and brass to speak true, let him stand on stools and weigh charges by candlelight. "Own the round," Grandpa said. "If you make it, you own the result." Mercer took that to heart. He learned that control begins when you stop blaming what came in a cardboard box. By June, the Joint Service Sniper Exchange, set up at Camp Lejeune, had every service breathing down one another's necks. It was the kind of competition they called friendly, but those words only softened the sound of a fist. Soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, they came to prove who could make inches look like accidents. Caleb's spotter, Staff Sergeant Davis, trusted him like a brother. Davis had watched him hold wind on a gust that would throw a tank's aim off a fraction and still hit a man at 800 meters. The students assumed precision came from glass or money. They never guessed it was sweat from a barn's workbench and a lifetime balancing grains of powder to the 10th. By June, the Joint Service Sniper Exchange, set up at Camp Lejeune, had every service breathing down one another's necks. It was the kind of competition they called friendly, but those words only softened the sound of a fist. Soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, they came to prove who could make inches look like accidents. 3 days before the match, Caleb walked to the logistics office to draw his issued ammo. 200 rounds, M118LR, lot matched, the same standard everyone used. He signed. He checked the seals. The armorer frowned, rifled forms, and told him the shipment had been delayed. "Administrative," he said. "Maybe tomorrow, maybe later." Davis waited in the shade. Caleb came out with the same level face he always wore. One nod, no words. But Davis watched when the logs were later traced and read what the armorer didn't say. An altered routing order, a blank signature, a whisper that someone wanted the playing field tilted. At night, someone had been talking about leveling the field. At dawn, someone's idea of leveling turned into a revolt against fairness. Caleb went back to his quarters, opened the metal case he kept under the cot, and laid his tools out like a surgeon. The press, the dies, a scale with a careful thumb sensor, primers and sealed tubes, match bullets counted twice, brass cleaned until it glowed like new coin. He worked in silence. Each powder charge flicked to the 10th of a grain, each primer seated to an exact depth, each bullet seated without a mark. He wrote everything into a log: lot number, charge, seating depth, crimp, temperature, humidity. He did the thing his grandfather taught him: remove excuses. Make the only possible variable be the shooter. By June, he had 100 rounds lined up on a towel in his room, each one honest, each one born from his hands and his knowledge. He took them to Range Captain Hayes with a logbook and a steady voice. "Made them," he said, flat. Captain Hayes looked at the numbers while the chronograph sang. Velocity spread narrower than the factory lot tested that morning. Hayes nodded. Approved. Known distance, 600 yards. 10 shots. The air smelled like hot brass and seawater humidity. The course went silent when Caleb settled, breathed, and broke the first shot. The recoil felt like a handshake. Each hit matched the first, then the next. When the grouping was measured, the lane judge paused twice. 5 rounds in a half an inch at 600 yards. Half MOA. The phrase rolled through the line like a tide. Across the berm, Gunnery Sergeant R. Voss, the Marine team's anchor, watched with a jaw that refused to smooth. He'd won before. He'd made a reputation out of shutting down challengers. He liked machines and manifests. He liked certainty. He did not like being surprised. "What ammo are you using?" Voss demanded afterward, thin with suspicion. "My own. Approved this morning." "You made these?" "Huh, you should be in a factory." Caleb didn't answer. He packed his rifle. He let the results speak. Day 2, unknown distance, rang like a different kind of bell. Targets without markers, changing wind, the need for quick math and colder nerves. Davis called wind. Caleb adjusted. Shot after shot dropped where intended. The Army led the scoreboard. The Marines glared. The audience breathed in unison. That night, a meeting was called. Captain Hayes read a paperwork trail about an administrative error. Someone had forged a routing order. Heads turned. The implication moved through the room like a small electric shock, accusation and consequence. Voss didn't leave the room. He stayed until the lights were off. He found Caleb after the event, standing at the edge of the range with a cigarette he didn't light, staring at the targets. He waited until the younger sergeant turned. "I heard," Voss said bluntly. Caleb's face gave nothing away. "You'll teach them?" Voss asked suddenly and almost soft. The old man's posture admitted something like respect. "We'll see," Caleb said. The final day was designed to break men. Moving targets, time shifts, simulated casualties. It favored teams that could keep thinking while their hands shook. Caleb and Davis moved with a clockwork calm, breathing in rhythm with each shot and tactical transition. When the final scores were tallied, the Army's lead was a margin too wide to explain away. Captain Hayes stepped to the mic and said the words that framed the lesson. Adaptability under adversity. That's what separates a shooter from a sniper. Anybody can be precise when everything is perfect. The true test is who makes it work when the system fails. Voss wasn't at the podium. He was at the back, watching how men accepted a lesson in skill and integrity. When the crowd thinned, he came to Caleb again. This time his hand was steady, his handshake real. "Teach my Marines. They need to learn consistency, not excuses." Caleb agreed. 6 weeks later, he stood in front of a class at Quantico. Marine snipers sat leaning forward while he placed a small press on the table, and with a grin that looked almost like the old man's, he poured powder and demonstrated the exacting art of building a match round. He showed them how to take responsibility, how to remove the chance of sabotage by being the one who controls it. And when a young corporal asked where he learned, he pointed to a folded photograph in his pocket. The old barn, a man with a file, a boy on a stool. "Make it yours," he said. "If you make it, you own the result." Months later, when men who once mocked him walked ranges and asked how close his last group was, they didn't ask to denigrate, they asked to learn. The sabotage that was meant to weaken him had only revealed the source of his strength. In the end, no one doubted his place on any line. No one questioned his right to a rifle. And when he walked into the range the next season, someone in the crowd shouted, half joking, half awed, "Caleb, show us the press." He smiled and pulled the little press from under his bag. The tool was small, its work was large. Subscribe if you like to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.